Community is where everybody works together today to ensure that everybody can eat tomorrow. This thought leads us to ask, can one farm community?
Welcome to the award-winning Food Chain Radio Show with your host, Michael Olson. And now get ready for 1 hour of What's Eating What Radio.
Well, hello out there. You are tuned into the 1349th edition of the Food Chain Radio Show. Or hey, perhaps you're among our friends over there in Paphos who are tuned into the Food Chain podcast at metrofarm.com. Well, whoever you are and wherever you are, welcome aboard. I am Michael Olson, your host for this hour of What's Eating What. Folks, a while ago I had a consulting contract on the island nation of Cyprus. The task was to find a crop with an economy sufficient to repopulate an agricultural plateau near the village of Akourdahleia that had been depopulated by the jobs available in coastal casinos. As I strolled the plateau with my hosts, we came upon a village of Greeks happily harvesting their grapes across the way. Though they were too far away to hear what was being said, we could easily hear their laughter and sense their joy at being engaged in the task at hand. It was a living picture straight out of the Bible. This, my host said, is what we want to bring back to Cyprus. Well, I recently heard that same laughter and sensed that same joy while strolling the grounds of Live Earth Farm in Watsonville, California, and have been endeavoring to capture its essence with a 3-part food chain series on what I call contrary farming. By contrary, I simply mean in opposition to the convention of the day. The first show in the series, Farming Children, featured Jessica Ridgway and the Farm Discovery Program, which brings children, a lot of children, to the farm so they can reach down to the earth and harvest a living thing. The second show, Farming Nature, featured Joanne Baumgardner from Wild Farm Alliance and Sam Earnshaw from Hedgerows Unlimited, who, like modern-day Johnny Appleseeds, travel around the country to bring nature and her wildlife back to the farm. As you can see, both of these shows feature a contrariness to the industrial model of farming that makes one smile, and both also find a home in today's show, Farming Community, in which we will ask, how can one farm community? And who better to ask than the community's Farmer of the Year, Tom BROZ of Live Earth Farm in Watsonville, California. Tom, welcome to the Food Chain.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, so how about we start our conversation off today by asking, why do you populate Live Earth Farm with laughter and joy?
It is the essence of inspiration. When you hear laughter on the farm, you know there is passion, there's joy, and there's, just people who are working and enjoying the land, are connected.
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked with Jessica Ridgway, and we talked with Joanne Baumgardner and Sam Earnshaw about how they bring children and they bring nature back to Live Earth Farms. Do those elements play into the laughter and joy?
When you bring people together, it doesn't matter if it's the workers that, grow the crops, the farmers who grow the crops, the kids that come and enjoy the land, like you probably discovered through the Discovery Program with Jessica Ridgway. There's just something special. There's always, a connection, not just with each other, but also with what's, just in front of them. And that's can be on the farm, can be so many things, whether it's the surprises that nature has, whether it's the animals, the insects, the flowers, just the beauty all around. And then it's, of course, also sometimes you work really hard and you even, get some inspiration and laughter out of that. The one thing when you mentioned laughter and the picture that I have in mind right now is when we pack our CSA shares, our community supported agriculture shares, every week for our community. There's music, there's chatter, there's laughter when we put what we harvested into the boxes that our members receive. And I think, now that you're mentioning it, we're not just packing food, but we're packing laughter right into those boxes. So I think that's kind of what comes to mind.
Well, good. So it seems like just about everything you do at Live Earth Farm runs contrary to the industrial model of farming. Do you consider yourself to be a proud contrarian?
That's a good question. A contrarian, I definitely believe that we have a model that is not what we would consider the conventional food system that's, dominant in this country, in the world. In that way, I would say, yes, I'm a contrarian. I do also respect, a lot of the, in our farming community, the people that are engaged in that model of, the more conventional models. I see a lot of, benefit of just understanding, how they go about their business and how they farm and how they have to survive. So I feel that it's the larger community that we all belong to, and I think it's the cross-pollination that needs to happen in order to hopefully move the whole system into a direction that is more sustainable.
Very good. So you are a proud contrarian, even though you won't admit it, right?
We can probably discuss that term.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, I once hosted Gene Logston on the Food Chain Radio Show, and he wrote a book called The Contrarian Farmer. But I couldn't get him to laugh about it in the least bit. So I'm glad you could laugh about it because it's really fun. So you are a community-supported agriculture farm, a CSA farm, which we've seen become quite popular throughout the land. So maybe you could walk us through what exactly a CSA farm is for those people who, for example, might get all of their food from the big box store. So what exactly is a CSA farm?
The term community-supported agriculture really was introduced to me when I was an apprentice at the University of Santa Cruz agroecology program way back in 1995. And it is still today what inspires me about community-supported agriculture, which is that you grow food where you're in relationship with the people who eat that food. And what's the supported part means is that the community, the people that receive the food, share in the risks and in all that goes into growing that food, and participates in it, and when I was, a naive and probably still very idealistic, kind of young wannabe farmer in those days, I thought that was a concept that I could embrace fully and kind of, yeah. So, yeah, what it really meant was that that the community was sharing in what we at Live Earth Farm were doing, and that was growing the food making a commitment to the consumers that were receiving that food. So, every time we planted something, we harvested something, we knew who was going to receive it, and in return, we got a commitment, whether it was financial or whether it was also in the early days, a lot of people came and helped in the actual growing of the food. It was, just a shared kind of commitment between the grower, the farmer, and the people who ate the food. So that concept, I always feel, is still important today, is that we need to make sure that the community that receives our food understands that there's a risk sharing in the process of growing food.
Mm-hmm. Now, to bring this down to a practical sense, what your customers do essentially is pay it forward to you. Is that not true?
Correct. So, for example, in the spring, when we today we have a year-round CSA program, and in the earlier days where we basically had less of a system that was, digitized and automized. We had to communicate in different ways. We basically sent out letters to our community and said, look, we're going to be offering shares for a certain period of the season, 20, 25, 30, 40 weeks of the year. And we asked members to pay upfront, for the entire season or part of the season. And that helped us early on to be able to start the farm and also to, plan every season, the crop plan, purchasing the equipment, and as well as all the inputs that we needed to get the farm going.
So that's pretty amazing when you think about it, because instead of having to go to a bank and borrowing ahead, you're going to your customers and they're paying ahead. And in a sense, as you say, assuming some of the risk for growing that crop. So you're really bringing your customers into your business as almost as partners, it seems.
That is true, and I think in the early days, I think this was more so than it is today. I think the CSA concept today has been, I would say, somewhat compromised with a lot of the demand and the competition, and how the whole concept of farm to consumer marketing, how that has evolved. And there's just a lot more choices in how people can access food directly from farmers. And so today the concept is a little more consumer driven. It's still a commitment, that people make. But it's, I think over the years, that concept of risk sharing, I think, has been diluted. So we had to modify, of course, our operation to broaden the sense of community, and we, whether it was going to farmers market and connecting with the community that way, or whether we had relationships with restaurants and stores, that all played into our kind of business plan that we felt we needed to diversify into.
Good. Well, we'll pick that up here when we come back from the break. Folks, this is the Food Chain Radio program. Michael Olson. Today we're asking a really interesting question. Can one farm community? And, well, we have the man here who can help us answer that question. He is the Farmer of the Year, Tom BROZ of Live Earth Farm in Watsonville, California. We will be right back.
Bay Federal Credit Union is the local way to bank. For big events and major milestones, experience the most important moments of your life with a financial partner you can trust. Bay Federal will provide you the resources to enjoy a life well planned and well lived. If you live or work in Monterey, San Benito, or Santa Cruz counties, you already qualify to become a member. Visit bayfed.com to join us today. Bay Federal Credit Union, making a real difference for our members and community since 1957. Equal housing lender and federally insured by the NCUA.
When your business is on the move, you must find the right place for it to move. Hello, folks. Michael Olson here. When Santa Cruz Voice had to move, and move fast, we called on the power brokers at J.R. Parish Commercial Real Estate in Santa Cruz, and they helped us move to the right place fast. Let's ask Matt Shelton, General Manager of J.R. Parish, the big question. What is the right place to move one's business?
Location, location, location. Sometimes if you're in the service commercial business, location of your customers is important. Sometimes it's the location of your employees. Sometimes it's the location of the people that own and operate the business. Sometimes it's rent. Sometimes it's the fact that there aren't that many buildings available to suit you. But mostly it's location of your customers, location of the principals, location of your employees.
When your business is on the move, move it to the right place with the help of the power brokers at J.R. Parrish in Santa Cruz.
jrparish.com.
You have to move now. No problem. Store your stuff at Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. 24/7 security. Drive it to your door and store it at Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom.
You sold your motorcycle to a friend in Fresno and need to deliver it. Well, Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom has motorcycle and car trailers ready to go. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom. California coast to the fertile valleys inland. Earthwise Land Service is your land's best friend. Earthwise can clear it, mulch it, move it, sculpt it, grade it, drain it, or retain it any way you choose. Earthwise Land Service is your land's best friend.
Hi, I'm Carolyn, and I have some property behind my home at Larkin Valley that I've never seen. It was completely overgrown with brush and poison oak, well over 10 feet high. I wanted to have it cleared to protect my horses from wildfires, but nobody could do the job. Then I called Buck at Earthwise. Buck brought out his big brush-eating machine and turned all the brush and poison oak into mulch. It was truly transformational. Thanks to Earthwise, my property is now like a park, and I can trail ride my horses.
Earthwise Land Service is your land's best friend. And now, back to What's Eating What on the Food Chain with Michael Olson.
A community-supported agriculture program, and really in which those who eat the food get to participate to one extent or another with the farmer in the growing and processing and selling and eating of that food. So it's a way of bringing the community to the farm and to the food from the farm. Well, we're with Tom BROZ, our community's Farmer of the Year of Live Earth Farm in Watsonville, California. And Tom, we've got a CSA farm. How many members or customers did you start with when you started your CSA farm?
The very first season, we started with 25 members. So we started on an acre of land that we started, digging by hand. We made handmade, beds, and everything was very manual in those days, but it was a good way to start and really understand kind of what we were getting ourselves into. And it grew very quickly from those 25 members in 1995 to today, almost 950 members, give or take.
From 25 to 950.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and there's a lot that can be said about expanding that concept, that community-supported agriculture concept. But one thing that never really wavered is to stay local and to connect with the consumers and the members of our CSA within a radius of no more than 100 miles around the farm.
In your area, there are farmers who have taken the notion of organic food national, and they have become very big in the process of doing that. You resisted that direction. Why? Why did you stay local?
Well, I felt there was really two models. One is to, grow something for people directly in your community and just focus on diversity, on quality, and really, being able to keep the farm at an operation that doesn't always feel the pressure. That doesn't always feel the pressure of having to grow, and that there's something to be said about not having to grow all the time, and that is, it has to do with having to put more capital always into your system. It's always this pressure of having to like everything in our economy, I think, is always pointing to growth, and you're being judged how fast you grow and how much you make, and that was just not something that I wanted to embrace, and that's not the kind of farming that I wanted to pursue. So I looked into ways to diversify more into how much we can, do things, bring the community onto the farm, and that's where the education program, for example, came in, and where we could provide other services.
In spite of not wanting to have the pressure to grow you did, from 25 members to 950 members. But I assume that you did that kind of organically with respect to you let it grow on its own accord and didn't try to force it by bringing in money from outside.
Well, money always money is something that we all need to work with. I mean, there's no other way to grow a farm, even at our scale. We have about 60 acres in cultivation, which here in California is considered a small farm. And what we really focused on is, one, to keep our workers employed year round, and that was a really important piece and having a workforce that really is part of the community. And today, we have still the same workforce. Many of the ones that started with us 25 years ago are still with us today, and even the children of the workers, that have grown up here on the farm are now are part of what we do. So over the years, as you said, we grew organically, but not without having to look at improving what we're doing, from the equipment to the infrastructure that's necessary to be able to sustain ourselves.
Well, good.
So yes, we did need capital, to be able to purchase the things that are needed in an operation like ours, whether it's the tractors, whether it's packing shed, and all those pieces are really, really important. And the land itself is really expensive here, so there's no way around that.
Well, there you go. Let's go back a little bit, take a step back, and ask you how you go about building a community-supported agriculture farm. There is a recipe for rabbit stew that begins with the admonition, first, catch the rabbit, which is good advice, right? No rabbit, no rabbit stew. So where did you start? What was your rabbit?
The rabbit is, what is my rabbit? That is, for us, for me, it's always the land. The land is where it all starts, and then building the relationship with the land to grow food and to sustain the business as well as the vision that one has. And over the years, to steward the land in such a way that we can have a sustainable system. That's always been the goal, we started really with 5 acres and then 20 acres, and we started looking at land, as we grew, and there's more and more demand for what we were doing, and there were more members who wanted to join our community-supported agriculture program. It was kind of a natural progression, and we were able to access land just here in and around Watsonville to be able to grow with the demand of what the community wanted us, to do. I think it was in the early years we had a waiting list and not till we kind of felt like we were at capacity. Did we really kind of slow down? So the early years were definitely a growth period where we went from, that one first acre, we grew quickly to 30 and 35 acres. And we started leasing land, and that was a big step. That was something where once you start hiring people and you start really expanding your business, the whole process starts becoming more complicated, and the risks are much, much larger. And that's where I think, again, having that certainty that we had a community of consumers, I would almost say eaters, people eat food and they're not just consuming food, that really were the backbone of every decision we made. And so as we went along, we always had feedback, we had community meetings, just to understand kind of where the farm, in what direction the farm needed to go. And yeah.
So instead, it sounds like you were led by your customers. Your customers,
Very much so, yeah.
Your customers told you what to do, which is always the essence of good marketing, I think.
Yeah.
What significance does environment play in Live Earth Farms?
Well, we have an amazing, we're fortunate to be able to grow almost year round. And the climate here in the Pajaro Valley is incredible. We have probably one of the best growing conditions anywhere in the world, from the soil to the climate. And we're very fortunate to be able to farm here. And we're just far enough away from the coast where we get enough heat to be able to grow, the warm weather, the summer crops, as well as the cool and the crops that, will also grow in the winter. We can grow in the summer, whether it's broccoli, all the cooler loving crops. Those are the ones that, we grow almost 40 different kinds of crops throughout the season. And that gives us the ability to really sustain a rotation that is that works, for the consumers as well as for the land.
Well, I think of Joanne and Sam bringing nature and nature's wildlife to your farm. And I wonder what impact that has on your customers. Is that something important for your customers to know that there's nature on the farm?
Yeah. Important aspect, Michael, is that every week when we send out a share of the harvested crops to our members, there's always a component that explains what's in that box. What did it take? Members are very connected through newsletters, of course now through social media, and we constantly communicate with our members. The phone is always available to people to call us and find out why something may be looking a little different in a box. Or there's a lot of education that goes into what it takes to bring that food to somebody's kitchen. Mm-hmm. And so that I think is a big part of what we do. So that connection with nature is a part of that. This is to understand that when we grow food and surrounded by a natural landscape and actually encouraging nature in and around the cultivated areas of the farm, that part needs to be explained, because it's hard to really grasp when you're just picking up a box, on a weekly basis. and what qualities are we bringing to the foods that you're eating, and that is protecting the landscape from erosion, encouraging a lot of the wildlife that exists in the natural landscapes around here, I think is really important. And then also understanding the benefits that we get from having these more natural areas around our fields, from having the beneficials really balance out some of the the pest insects, and I don't even want to call them pests because they're just there because there is something that's unbalanced, and so it's always this process of trying to balance things out between what we're growing and what really is the natural kind of landscape around it.
Mm-hmm. And communicating that environment to your customers is a great way of adding value, because it's not just food that you're bringing to people, it's environment, it's nature.
Correct.
And who knows what's in that tomato that you get from the big box store. The other thing that seems to be of significance to you is soil. Everybody wants to be green these days, and I pride myself in being a brownie. In that I think it all starts in the soil, which is brown, and you don't get to the green before you go to the brown. But that's just my way of thinking. What do you think?
Well, soil is not just brown; it's alive. Soil is this. It's like a living organism. We don't look at it that way. We always kind of decry, or we always say soil is dirt. And sometimes we think of dirt as something that we shouldn't be touching or being having on our bodies, and soil is really what allows us to be healthy and to be alive, and we to bring that understanding to not just the consumer, but also just bring that greater understanding of how soil is really the foundation of everything we do takes time, and sometimes making the decisions to favor the life in the soil is where it's at, and to not compromise, and I think that's really difficult in farming. We always have this pressure of trying to, come out on top financially, which is important.
Spend less and get more, right? But
and we always think, well, can we extract just a little more out of that resource? And I think that's really, really where that balancing act is, and that's where the community again is so important, because a community that can understand that and continues to purchase your products based on that decision making, and to really understand that's where it's at. I think that's where the crux of the relationship really is at.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Food Chain Radio program. Michael Olson, your host for this hour of What's Eating What with Tom BROZ and you. We're talking about building a community-supported agriculture farm. Right back.
When you buy local American-grown flowers, flowers will grow and flourish in America. Hello, I'm Deborah Prinzing, author of Slow Flowers for certified American-grown flowers. When you buy local flowers, you're helping our country's family farms reduce the transportation footprint of flowers and enjoy fresher, longer-lasting bouquets. So please, next time you shop for flowers, think local. Think certified American-grown flowers. Visit AmericanGrownFlowers.org to learn more.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
800-948-6896. 800-948-6896. 800-948-6896. That's 800-948-6896.
When your business is on the move, you must find the right place for it to move. Move it to the right place with the help of the power brokers at J.R. Parrish in Santa Cruz. Let's ask Matt Shelton, General Manager of J.R. Parrish, the big question. What about the terms of the lease?
The terms of the lease is where we really prove our value. I mean, where a tenant goes is often like an eye test. They pick the location that's best for them, but then creating a lease document that's fair or advantageous to the tenant or owner is our job, to go in there and figure out what they pay for in addition to the rent, how long the term is, what happens after the initial term, who pays for what in terms of operating expenses of the building, what kind of limitations you have on that. That's kind of where we get involved because of our background. We do this every day. Our tenants do it every 3 to 5 years.
When your business is on the move, move it to the right place with the help of the power brokers at J.R. Parrish in Santa Cruz.
jrparish.com.
The wife says the boat's got to go, no problem. Stored at Anbar Self-Storage in U-Haul, easy off Highway 1 by the airport. 24-hour security for cars, boats, and RVs. Stored away at Anbar Self-Storage in U-Haul in Freedom.
You made the products, now you have to deliver. Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul has the moving vans, shipping boxes, and packing materials you need to deliver them. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom.
So much to say, so little time to say it. On the Food Chain with Michael Olson.
So much to a farm that grows community. There's all kinds of people. There's the environment. There's soil. What about labor, Tom BROZ? You said that you're able to keep laborers for 25 years. Must be something on that farm that keeps people other than just wages.
Oh, yeah. The backbone of any farm is, the people who, it's the community of workers, and we really are like a family here on this farm. I have to say that sounds a little corny, but when it really, we really, care for each other, and we know, and that's also something that I think, at least on our farm, I think I'm really proud of, is to see how the people really care when they when the tractor driver that goes to the Scotts Valley Farmers Market on weekends and sells the produce that he's been growing and caring for, and can actually look a consumer in the eye and say, this is something that I grew, and I think there's a lot of pride in being able to, sell and bring to the customer something that you put your life into. So it's the backbone of the farm. Just like I talked about the soil, the workers that really care for that soil are really key, and because it's the little decisions and the decisions how we interact with everything we do is so important. Whether it's how you cut that broccoli, when do you sow your cover crops, the timing, the care that goes into all the details of growing from seed to harvest is just, it's a specialization. It's, we always say farm workers, are not skilled laborers. And that's something that is just so wrong. People that work and farm and grow food, I think they're extremely skilled. And we should really honor that. And, we really felt that during the pandemic, we suddenly realized how important the people that grow our food are.
Amen to that. And speaking of all the details, I think of the crops. You said you had what, 40 crops, 40 different crops?
Yeah, it's 40, sometimes even 50. It really depends on the crop plan, that we put together. And it has to do also with, kind of what our customers demand, whether it's at the farmers market or the restaurants or the CSA members. So it varies, but just around 40 to 50 crops.
Well, it's 40 and 50 crops, but some of those crops are planted multiple times a year, some in succession with other crops. So the details are must be simply incredible. You must need artificial intelligence to keep track of all the details, but you don't. You're people, and your people have that knowledge. So that's really something. So crops. Which crop did you start with? What was crop number one?
I think every farmer has their favorite crop, and I grew up in the highlands of the Andes and in the country in Ecuador. And the one crop that from little on, I was always in awe with, and I loved, is potatoes. So potatoes is something that probably inspired me to get involved in farming. And so I that was the first crop when I started Live Earth Farm with our family started Live Earth Farm. It was I still have a picture of planting that first potato crop. And I love a lot of other crops, of course, whether it's strawberries or apples. Some you learn to love, and others you just love because that's what you grew up with, or my mother had a big garden, and there was, of course, the summer crops like the tomatoes and the carrots. I love root crops just because there's something magical about being able to pull something out of the ground that you can eat. And potatoes definitely are like these treasures that just kind of appear when you're.
When did you bring your customers into the decision-making process about which crops to plant?
Oh, early on. First, as soon as we started farming, maybe not that very first year because we just didn't have yet the consumers or the customers. But second year for sure, we always had like community meetings where we come together and say, well, what is it that we wanted to grow, and what can we grow? And so, early on, we had CSA community meetings every year to kind of hash out the crop plan. That has changed somewhat now. We have a pretty good understanding, but we still send out surveys and ask people what they would like to see us grow, and we integrate that as best as we can.
Can you recall any specific crop that your customers brought to you and say, please grow this?
Yes, I have to say there's one crop that I had no idea even existed, and it was shiso. Shiso is an herb that is used in sushi, and I think is popular in Japan. And one of our customers who had lived in Japan, he wanted to see if we could grow that, and it was a very unusual request, and we grew it, and lo and behold, it was something that grew well here. But I think a lot of members will have especially their favorite crops. Of course, there's certain varieties. Like in the pepper, certain kinds of peppers. We have people from Eastern Europe, who would like to have the Hungarian style peppers, that are very different from the bell peppers. And we have some, very special requests from, more around the hot peppers, that are uh, becoming increasingly popular. And then apples, we started growing apples, and people have certain varieties in mind that they grew up with, like the Macintosh, is a variety that we grew because certain members really liked them. So we grafted trees over to growing Macintosh apples. So yeah, it's like every year we try to kind of reassess, what is something that consumers will like to see us grow.
Do you see a lot of trends in eating wherein, it might be Red Delicious one year and a Macintosh the next?
Um, the Red Delicious is probably not a good example.
That's a bad example, right?
But I would say, there are trends, and it's around certain culinary trends. Sometimes it's more has to do with, for example, the Asian cuisine has really taken off, and so some people really like to see us grow more, bok choy or Napa cabbage, or people started looking into fermenting foods, and so pickles and certain kind of cucumbers to pickle, and Napa cabbage for kimchi and things. So we do see that there's trends, but there is we always have our go-to crops. Whether it's the tomato or whether it's some having really good greens. The greens and the broccolis, those are just always kind of the staples. And then around those staples, we have we grow the things that certain people really want to have.
Sure.
Like, for a certain period of time, we had padron peppers, and that was a trend for a few years, and that kind of sloughed off.
Then, with so many different crops, 40, 50 crops, how do you go about organizing your harvest and distribution?
That's always every day is a day where we just plan our harvest. Like right now, it's middle of the season, and really things are really, it's probably the most intense time of the year for the next 3 months. And first we have the CSA membership that orders, what they would like to see in their shares every week. We went from, we customize our shares nowadays. So on Monday, we will have, the whole list of crops that we, posted on the website that will be available the following week. And so members will order what they want, and we will, harvest accordingly and pack that. And then we have the farmers markets, they're kind of separate, but kind of similar in kind of what each market has their own kind of demand. And the way we go about it is that we have a team of that harvests, daily, and since we're about 35 employees, and some focus more on strawberries, maybe some focus more on the greens, and we just kind of create a schedule depending on where the demand is. So every week and every day we really have a harvest schedule, and sometimes it's around meeting a certain customer's demand. Let's say if it's a store, that is a very different way of harvesting than if it's for the CSA or if it's for a restaurant. So we have to adjust a little bit, each of the harvests.
It sounds to me like you're always doing something different every day. And therefore, how is it possible to get bored?
Yeah, boredom is that word. It never really comes up.
Good. Well, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this then. How can those of us out here in the world become very good CSA members? What does it take to be a good CSA member, a good customer?
I think anyone who is interested in eating with the seasons and locally, I think that's a really important step. And with that, you immediately start looking at kind of what we call the local food shed, and as soon as you start looking at what's growing in, where you live seasonally and locally, you start connecting with, farms like ours. There's there's a lot of farmers that are kind of in line with the same growing philosophy as we do, and farmers markets are a great way to start seeing what's available locally, and then making that connection with the farmers at the farmers markets is really important. And of course, today you can really search for farms in and around where you live and start asking the questions. I think it's really important that anyone can just visit. Our farm is the one thing that I always say is every customer should have access to the farm, and if they have the time to see what we do, should always be welcomed. So it's important to just educate yourself a little bit, and then ask questions. There's no wrong question around food.
Well, Tom BROZ, a few years ago, not that long ago, a couple decades, you were a rare creature indeed. There's so few of you. Today, I think I counted 181 certified farmers markets in the San Francisco Bay region. So you really are a trend in yourself when it gets right down to it, and changing the way we all eat out here. Has it been an exciting ride for you?
It's been amazing. I mean, I look back and I said, would I have ever, done something different? I'm just fortunate that I've been able to, stick with it and be able to farm in this way. It's not been easy. I can't say it's this is something that just drops in your hands, and there's a lot of things that we just don't know, the risks that we take and how they will turn out. I think we have at this point in time, I think a real important job to do, and that is to, create more consciousness around our food systems and how we eat. And I think our little farm...
And with that, Tom, we just ran out of time, but you were most eloquent in your contrariness in farming. Thank you so much. Tom BROZ, Farmer of the Year, Live Earth Farm, Watsonville, California.
You've been listening to the award-winning Food Chain Radio Show with Michael Olson. And if your friends missed the show, tell them to log on the Food Chain page at metrofarm.com for a listen. Now, go out and find some food with its farmer's face on it and live.